everybody. Welcome to the Training, Learning, and Development community. Thank you for joining us today. Happy Tuesday to all of you out there. Let's see. Our guest today is a TLDC member who is a senior developer. You have your own company. You have supported TLDC for a while now. You've speaking at events. In fact, you're speaking next week at our AIDC 23 conference, the Accessible and Inclusive Design Conference. Chrisanna Paxton McMillin. And is it okay? I call you Chris, right? Because
yes, that is my preferred name.
Okay, Chris. Yes, thank you.
Much easier to say.
Yes, and I have so many interesting questions for you because you have a very interesting background. One of the main things, let's see, you have a company called D3 Training Solutions.
Yes.
And
that stands for Design, Develop, Deliver, since that's kind of what we do.
Yeah. And company has been around for how long?
We just celebrated our 8th year in March.
Wow, congratulations.
Very exciting.
And I missed seeing you at DevLearn in Las Vegas last fall.
No,
you were there.
I think
I was
just
there.
Crossing paths.
Yeah.
So, but hopefully this year.
Yeah, I may go. I'm not quite sure. I may go. I probably will try. It's, Vegas is just such a crazy place. But
yes.
The event typically is just not to be missed. And so I'll have to, I'll try to check it out. And maybe we can meet up then. But,
yes, definitely.
Until then, let's go ahead. And I'm just going to ask you, I've got a few questions for you about your background. Now, you have been in training for a long time.
Yes. And I love that you called me veteran versus old. So thank you.
That's great. Was it 1998?
98 is when I first officially got into the field.
Yeah, and so from 1998, and now you founded D3 Training Solutions 8 years ago. What inspired you to make the transition into technology and e-learning? Because it looked like you have an IT background, right? And then
kind of.
got into e-learning.
I speak, the only foreign language I somewhat speak is IT. And my IT friends, I'm like, they're brilliant, but I can take what they say, hopefully, and put it in English so the rest of us can understand it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just way up there. My background before that, though, was journalism, news editing. So I was from the yearbook and graphic design, and I feel like so much of that is what we do on a daily basis. And I was a former teacher. So I taught in the public school system here in Tulsa, and WorldCom, really dating myself now, called me up for a technical trainer. And it was one of those that, binary, analog to digital, how, voice over IP worked, and, ATMs and not the telephone, or not money, but, automatic, it's anyway, telecommunications and so, the internet. And it was amazing, and I loved it. And so that's what really kept me into technology. And the funny thing is WorldCom had a what we call distance learning back then, and had a studio.
Yeah.
And we had a team of about 25 across the United States, and everybody was teaching, but most of them were soft skills, your leadership, your management, and the technical stuff. I would travel around, and I'd never get through security now, but with all these cables and wires and all these samples of things to show fiber optics and stuff. And I would get to travel and do this stuff, but it finally came to the point where they were like, sweetie, you need to start using, teaching either this way, using WebEx, or using our studio. So we had our own TV channel, or you need to find another place. And so I decided, okay, yeah, sure, maybe I can teach this way. And the funny thing is, I'm still in contact with a lot of them, and I'm the only one still doing it.
Wow.
And my old manager really laughed. She's like, you were the last one, but you've stuck it out. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm stubborn that way.
Well, and that kind of leads to my next question, which is, you have been a adjunct faculty at Tulsa Community College. Is that right? Tulsa Community College?
Yes, Tulsa Community College, yes.
And it's been if I recall, it was since 2000 or something?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. I taught my first one, and I started teaching back then again in analog to digital, binary, the Cisco certifications. So
right. And the thing that's fascinating is when I looked at I actually copied and pasted them, the classes that you taught, they're all business, intro to business, intro to ethics, business issues, small business management, intro to entrepreneurship, computer concepts, MS Office, PowerPoint, multimedia, and then telecom classes, overview, telecom analysis 1, telecom anal 2. But there's nothing there that has anything to do with e-learning or anything like that. I mean, maybe, PowerPoint multimedia, but
Exactly.
how did that happen?
We are a community college, and so it is truly, again, more that community college. So it's just that freshman, sophomore courses. We don't prep. I'll come in and do special sessions every once in a while for the continuing ed side or the community ed side for companies on distance learning, and I'm using the old terms again, on e-learning and things. And I do a lot within the state of Oklahoma. I'm on a couple different committees where we're helping with incorporating virtual reality in training and safety things and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'd love to teach one to the front line, but demand isn't there yet. But hopefully one day.
Nice. Wow. So
before I retire.
Yeah, and it's more than a couple of decades doing that. So kudos to you. That's amazing.
Thank you. I
do want to hear though. I want to ask you some questions about D3. It's a certified women-owned business. How about some unique perspectives or challenges that you've encountered having a woman-owned business? I know I can see Vanessa, who owns her own business too, here in the audience. But how does the identity shape your company's mission and operations?
For me, it actually came from one of my clients, a Fortune 100 oil and gas company here. Again, they were one of my first clients. So a few months after my business started, needed me to certify because they were trying to be more diverse and women-owned help. So I self-certified with them, and I actually just got through the state of Oklahoma my women-owned certification probably 2 months ago. But that is something I think, Lewis, we can talk too on. I'd love to do a whole session on this because so many in our field are women-owned, minority-owned, different things. And I don't know about a lot of the people on the call, but they will get these primary bids for government work and they'll contract it out, who contracts it out. So I may be down here on the 7th level doing the actual work. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. How can I get a bigger piece of the pie? And so part of that is getting your actual SBA certification. And there's places out there that charge for it. SBA does not. And so I'm learning all about that. And then there's all types of women-owned programs that I actually flew up to Chicago last week for a session all about women helping get other women into, government contracting. And I think our field is just obviously prime for that. But then there's so many more than just women-owned. There's HubZone. There's disadvantaged or minority-owned, 8A. I mean, there's so many things that can help us get that foot in the door to get some of these contracts instead of sometimes maybe some of the big companies. Although I love my big companies. I do work for some, but.
Right. No, absolutely. That would be wonderful. I mean, just sharing that information would, that would be absolutely amazing. If you want to do anything on that, I'd be happy to help facilitate something like that. But as a woman and running the business, is there any particular challenges you've encountered in this space, or I don't know?
I think for me, the biggest assumption is always that it's a male-owned.
Right.
Especially probably it doesn't help going by Chris. So I was thrilled when it was okay to start using our pronouns because I've always been misgendered in that sense, being, again, in technology, that kind of stuff too. But it really, I don't think it's hindered much, except that, I've often been to meetings, and I remember sitting at a meeting once and they were doing a new kickoff and they're like, well, I left a message for him. And everybody in the room kind of started laughing because it was a kind of a new guy. And obviously he didn't leave a message on my phone because you don't sound real masculine, I don't think. And so it was like, I just kind of leaned over. I was 2 people down. I was like, hi, I'm Chris. I'm sorry I didn't get your message. But I don't think it's really hurt. And I think if anything, it helps because we can see things I think often from different experiences and different views, and maybe a little more empathetic to
Hmm.
others.
Hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I see Vanessa posted in the chat that she's starting the official process to certify the businesses women and minority that her business is women and minority owned. So
And I'm curious, are you doing it through the state or SBA? Because I started with the state level because it was easier to kind of practice with the paperwork, and then working on that. So yes, I'm working on that too. Holler if you have any questions. I've got all
wow.
kinds of notes behind me on getting it done and who to contact, and you don't have to pay to get it done. And because there's so many companies out there, as soon as you Google about this, they're like, "Oh yeah, pay us $7,000." I know is what one lady said to get it done, and it's like, mm,
Wow.
so,
Okay. I guess I should look into that being minority owned since it's, pretty
yes,
much only me.
exactly.
That's interesting. What I'm just curious, kind of, what are the benefits of that? I have no idea.
The benefits, a lot of the bigger companies, and again, I'm hearing some things where they're not focusing. I mean, that we've seen on the news so much recently where they're starting to lay off their DEI, uh,
Mhm.
but still, hopefully, they still have a DEI focus, and maybe they'll
Yeah.
realize what they're doing is wrong. Um, or maybe I would love almost to where it eventually incorporates DEI and accessibility to where it's all, and it kind of puts ourselves out of business. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. But a lot of, whether it's your Fortune 100, your corporate businesses, they have a goal to spend a certain percentage of their monies hiring contractors that meet this qualification. So it helps their stockholders, I guess, when they
Yeah.
send out their, oh yeah, we did this. On the government side, they actually, again, will give preferential hiring. But there's a thing that we learned about too called something like something at a class of two. And unfortunately, so many, it may just be one. So the more of us that team together, we can actually go back and say, you excluded us, and there's more than one of us. So it's not that you can say you were just giving it to them and
Yeah.
skip over, and they will, it helps you get those bids and those contracts.
Nice. Fascinating. Yeah. Let's get together and we can
Yeah,
talk about
definitely.
that more. I know that especially with like freelancers all together, would love to have that information. Now, D3 Training Solutions. Uh, I saw that you provide unique and customized experiences for each client. How do you do that?
I think the biggest thing is just to listen,
Okay.
and be aware of what they're asking for and what problem they're trying to solve. And I think for myself, which a lot of people kind of might be shocked at,
Hmm.
training and e-learning isn't always the answer.
Hmm.
And I will be the first to tell them that, because I think in the long run that helps create that relationship. I mean, sometimes it can just be done with uh, an instructional manual or a poster hung up in the hallway. And if they want me to create it, I can. But but training and e-learning isn't always the answer.
Yeah.
So we've got to figure out kind of, again, that analysis part and what is the problem, and then how are you going to check to make sure it's fixed.
Yeah. Yeah. And also you partner with, other e-learning
Yeah.
companies, other e-learning leaders. I saw that like you have a thing going with Beyond where I can't remember. It's maybe it's like an affiliate type of thing.
Mhm.
How does this help you and D3?
It helps me because I am so small. I am a one-person show, and I
Yeah.
am in rural Oklahoma. If you could see outside, I have pictures I posted once of these two bobcats walking in front of my office window. Um, so for me, it helps because, again, I can hopefully find out about some of the later technologies and things going on. But I can also, again, work with the clients. I am a firm believer in, if you do work with that client, if someone has given me a client to work with, I'm representing, IAC. I do a lot of training for Interactive Vantage Corporation out of Atlanta, and I do some work for them too. When I'm doing their work, I am IAC. And I tell people, it's like, I just happen to be the one employee that's not in Atlanta. If I'm doing stuff for DTR out of Wisconsin, well, I just happen to be their odd employee. I'm not D3. And I think that helps build those relationships, which again helps. So I'm not out hustling and trying to find work all the time. So,
Nice. And you provide like services to corporations, nonprofits, government agencies all across North America, right? How do
yes.
you how do you manage the diversity of organizations that you serve?
I keep
Just
a
the
lot of
different sectors. Yeah.
Yeah, I keep a lot of notes. I have, if you could see in my office, I've got whiteboards around my desk. My office is kind of messy. I had a Garfield poster that said "A messy desk is a sign of a creative mind," and then someone posted something about Einstein or one of them always had messy desk, and that was because they were smart. And I'm like, I will take either of those. But I keep lots of notes. I take very detailed notes. I got kind of in trouble in college because I took too detailed notes. Part of that has to do with I was recently diagnosed with ADHD. I've always had dyslexia, or I've always known about the dyslexia, and again, the vision issues. And so that just helps me remember and keep track. And so I'm always, okay, wait, who is this client? What are they doing? How do I need to look them up and address things?
Wow. Wow. So, okay. And so you've been able to manage those challenges and still successfully run a business.
I almost think it helps in our field
Yeah.
because we are doing so many different things that you
Right.
have to be able to multitask. And I had some great teachers that taught me that it is a talent versus a disability.
Okay. No,
So,
that's great. That's great. And let's talk a little bit about your participation next week in AIDC
mhm.
23. Like why is it that that is a conference that you want to speak at?
I, to me, it's one of those, again, I'm trying to put myself out of business. I would love for that conference to go away because we don't need it.
Mhm.
Because everybody realizes that when we build for diversity and when we build things where people can see themselves in it and they feel safe and they want to take the training, everyone wins.
Yeah.
And when we build for these things, it's not just, oh, I don't have anyone that works here that's blind, or deaf. Do you really know?
Right.
Because it doesn't sound like it's a safe place for them to feel comfortable. But even still, how many of us wear glasses? I mean, right at the moment,
Yeah.
how many of us have gotten older? How many people are colorblind? How many people is English not their second language? So many people help. And again, through basically the curb cut effect, curb cuts were created for wheelchairs, but many of us benefit from them. We can do the same with e-learning. We can all benefit, and not just e-learning, but just PDFs and all kinds of things. We all benefit when it's what's done for all, and we consider all.
And how about just your motivation for creating inclusive experiences? Is it because you have ADHD and dyslexia, or is it anything else?
Part it's that. I also I've got family members
Mhm.
that are marginalized.
Mhm.
My grandfather and my aunt were blind, and so I kind of always grew up thinking everybody knew how to just write things and work. And so it was really shocking, when I realized that everybody wasn't used to that. Um, but it's just, I've always, I grew up in a lower social economic area
Mhm.
in the largest school district in Oklahoma. And my mom got me out because the teacher said I wouldn't graduate otherwise.
Mm.
Um, but to me, it just, I had a great mom that taught me it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. No, fair enough. I mean, my father it was the same way with my motivation, or at least my awareness, was because I remember seeing my dad doing sign language for the first time with one of his employees. And my dad was a farm worker, and he was doing sign language, and I was like, "What? How do you know how to do that, Dad?" And he's like, you know, they've got to work too. He's like, so I learned it, and I want to be able to help them. And he did. He would find, marginalized folks and make sure that they were getting, they were able to experience things that, I don't know, that they would normally be, excluded from. So, I was kind of raised in that way too. So,
Say I'm
fair.
proud. In college, we had a program called Oklahoma Intercollegiate Legislative, and it would basically be representatives from all the colleges around the state that would go to the Capitol and write these bills. And after we were done, the actual legislative and Senate would look at our bills. And I found out after I graduated and I moved out of state that one of the bills I proposed, which was that sign language be considered a foreign language, was accepted. And it is now, it's not done in every state, but at least in Oklahoma, it is now considered a foreign language.
Oh, congrats. Nice. Well
Yeah.
done. I'm also curious. I mean, I know I'm kind of backing up a little bit, but you had these classes that you teach at Tulsa Community College
Mhm.
that are basic telecom and business. But why not stick to that with as far as career stuff is concerned? Why did you get into e-learning and learning and development
The
altogether?
business went away. Like so many in what 2002-ish, MCI WorldCom, the technology field crashed, and that was my second layoff, and I was 30 something, I think, at the time.
Yeah,
And being in training and development, it happens a lot, but especially being in such a focused field of training and development and technology, it definitely happened. And so that's when I went to grad school and got my master's in occupational education, focusing on technology and distance learning. And it was like, let me still have that where I love it, except when it doesn't work. Um, but it still lets me be in the classroom because, again, I work so remotely. So I'm still in the
yeah,
classroom. I can still see people without, and there's some, I think most of us, I would hope, there's a high that you get when you see the light bulb go off and they're like, oh my gosh, I get it.
yeah,
And I love the community college in the sense that I have some concurrent students that are in high school, but I have a lot of non-traditional students, those who are just now going back to school, who are in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s.
hmm,
And if we can inspire them and get them excited, so I still get my teaching fix.
yeah,
And that was where they moved me over, is they had a need.
hmm,
And so I moved from the technology. Then I went to computers, like Word, PowerPoint, things like that. And they're like, you've got your own business. Could you possibly do this? And I was like, sure. So
interesting. All right, so and I got a few more questions for you. Um, you've been in L&D for a few decades now, but what do you see? I mean, how about the field of instructional design? Do you see it changing now?
I do, but I want to say it's for the better.
Okay.
We have a lot of people moving into the field, which I think is great. I would hope we never become gatekeepers
Hmm.
for those wanting to come in. Which kind of goes to one of your other questions. I think I saw something about certifications, which I love certifications and those programs, because it kind of helps show that, yes, I know what I'm talking about before they even speak with me.
Hmm.
But at that same time, I think there's a lot of future when we think about things like VR, I was teaching at TCC, I think I'd been in my 16th year, when a student from the Bahamas was like, am I going to die in a tornado here? Because in Oklahoma, they're so bad. And I'm like, oh no, sweetie, you're going to freeze to death because you think it's cold at 60.
Yeah.
But no, a tornado, I mean, the chances are very small, but that's what dawned on me. I've been here 16 years and I've never been in a tornado drill. And I know we have them. So created a virtual tornado drill, working on active shooter drills, things like that. But then the whole idea of AI to me is also exciting and inspiring, because we're already using it. So many of us are using things. Beyond brought in some AI. Many of us are using things like Well Said Lab or Murph or Amazon Poly Voices. I mean, that's all really AI creating those voices. So if we can look at that as a tool to save us some time, is it really any different than the rapid development tools that we're currently using? So I think, and that's part of our responsibility as those of us who've been in here for a little longer, is to calm people down and realize that, no, this is a good thing. This can make us all better.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. I ask because it feels like I witness conversations that are happening in our Slack groups and just online on LinkedIn, of people feeling like that there's a shift. And some people are like, a couple years ago, I decided to get into instructional design, but it's no longer like a field that, that seems to be growing, and the competition is intense and that type of thing. I mean, would you have any advice for folks like that?
I would say to look at the entire field. And so maybe it's not just instructional design, maybe it's training and development in general. Maybe you're going to be a stand-up instructor,
Mhm.
whatever it takes to kind of get your foot in the door.
Mhm.
for the instructional design, to me, again, it's part of it. I think we've got to evolve with it in that, yes, competition is getting better, but is competition a bad thing? I mean, would I be upset if I only had one choice in doctors to go to instead of my favorite doctor or dentist?
Mhm.
So if we can do that and hopefully have that help us be our best and constantly improving, then I think it's a good thing. And I
Nice.
think it's part of our job to help others hopefully see that.
Yeah, yeah. And no, and let's talk a little bit about the certification thing. So, how do you maintain your professional development? Do you like constantly look at certifications and and completing them? What's your strategy there?
Um, if I was starting out, I'd probably be getting more certifications.
Okay.
Since many of these came about after I already had 10 or 15 years in the field, I haven't.
Yeah.
Just because, like, do I want to go the time expense? I mean, I'm 54. Retirement hopefully is coming soon. Um, but I'm constantly looking at those just because, again, we have a lot of people on LinkedIn, on the TLDC channel. They're like, what do I need to do? What's my next steps? And I always want to offer those as alternatives because that can be one of those things that sets them apart from every other person that may have come along.
Hmm.
And depending on who they're interviewing with, some fields really love certifications, but then it also depends on, okay, who's the certification from?
Right. Right.
So
So, how about you? How do you stay on top of your professional development currently?
part of it is the conferences,
Okay.
you know, uh, joining things like TLDC, DevLearn, ATD, being your members. Again, part of it's that community. Um, I just got a chat with Cindy. Yes, no certifications, creating it for 20 years. And I recognize your name. So I need to look closer at your face, but because I so know your name.
Yeah.
Because back 20 years ago, there was just a few of us and
Uh-huh.
we're getting larger. But I think the conferences and then hopefully seeing again, I'm going to sound like my grandma, the younger people come in, regardless of age, but experience wise, will help us again stay on our toes because hopefully we're helping them.
Right. 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 No, Cindy is a rock star. I'm sure that you know Cindy.
Yes. I know
um,
her name.
yeah, yeah. So
Um,
it feels like a lot of the younger people that are coming in, like I see a lot of focus on e-learning development and focusing on technology and just building things versus the theories and methodologies of instructional design. What is like, do you have an emphasis? I know that you're like a Lectora expert. You've done work with the e-learning or ELB, I guess they're called now, that type of thing. What do you tend to focus on?
well, and I tell people, I mean, I own all three. I was on the Adobe Project Charm for the new Captivate. I own the Adobe the Articulate 360 suite. I prefer Lectora because again, my primary emphasis is making sure we can meet WCAG accessibility for AA, and that is so much easier to do in
Mhm.
Lectora than it is in Storyline. But if I don't have to build accessible, then sure, I'll build. I mean, it really kind of depends on the client too. Um, it it's got to fall. You've got to have that foundation though.
Yeah.
You've got to understand the foundation and how to do the research and how to write it up. And part of that again goes to the whole DE&I. I mean, what language are you writing at? As a journalism major in undergrad, we were told to write at an 8th grade level. And it's not that people aren't smarter than that because you say that and people get upset, but it's because back then that was a nice level to read at where you had easily comprehension.
Mhm.
Well, the world's getting smaller, and so
Yeah.
now it's 6th grade level. Okay, so are you using these? I'm going to quote my mom: 25-cent words when a 5-cent word will do. Um, write it at a level, and that again, I think, goes so often to understanding that basics where they're not trying to prove themselves.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think theories and stuff are huge, and it's as far as which theory I use. Well, once you learn them all, I think many of us kind of just combine them all in our head and
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, Chris, thanks so much. I got one last question for you. What's next for 3?
Uh, Good question. Working on, I've written, gosh, in the past I was challenged by a couple people to start paying it forward. So I have 3 ebooks out right now. I have a regular book out behind me. I'm working on a new book that hopefully will be out sometime next year that kind of, again, takes that journalism, simplifies things a bit. And then hopefully just, again, get out and inspire people to do that next generation of stuff. Women own, minority own, 8A, Hub Zone, you name it, because the pie is there.
Yeah.
And there's enough work for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. That topic, women owned, that is something that I haven't run into at all. So I think within our space, that is definitely something that would be, that people would love to hear. So yeah, let's set something up. So are you going to be speaking at DevLearn or stage?
I am not. I think I'm a stage inside the expo, and then I did send a proposal in for Demo Fest, which I've never done before, but I'm kind of excited about this project. And then I am going to actually submit some proposals for the new training. They've done the new training conference, the guilds, where it's like training in HR, and since I did HR for so long in my training, I figured that'll be nice. So
nice. What are you submitting to Demo Fest?
Demo Fest, it's a program called Plan My Ride, and it's not a driver's ed program, but it's a program for 14 to 22-year-olds created by they all PhD psychologists, to give them the tools to be able to say no if someone is marijuana or using their cell phone or whatever. I mean, it's got mimes, it's got virtual reality, you name it, all kinds of animation. I mean, it's a really cool program, and again, 100% accessible.
Nice.
So, yeah, okay. And from responsive, so because I can use their phone. Yeah. You
build it in Lectora?
I did. And Scenario VR, although some of the animation, I'm not sure what they did. They hired additional animators because way more than what I could do in Beyond.
Awesome. So. Very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to maybe seeing you in Las Vegas. Yes. I might give it a try and head over there. But with that, Chris, I want to just thank you for participating, supporting TLDC. I really appreciate you being a part of our strong little community. And we will see you next week. I don't have my AIDC calendar in front of me, but so I don't know which day and time that you're going to be. Monday. Oh, yeah. You're going to be opening up the conference for us.
Well, I want to say thank you, because you have done, I love this community. I love the Slack channel. It helps, again, those remotely, we can still chat, and you have done so much for it. And it is a great role model for all of us. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. All right, Chris, I appreciate that. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks for jumping in, everyone in the live audience. And I believe it's tomorrow that we have the ID Lance founders in Parker Grant and Andrea Dotling are going to be in. So I think that's early tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Pacific time. So join us if you can. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out the session, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.